I think I'm
Here's a
live.
song for every girl who's ever been through something. She thought she couldn't make it through, yeah.
I can't see.
I sing these words because I was that girl
What's happening?
too,
Okay.
wanting something better than this.
Technical difficulties. It says next. Okay. Okay. So back to I had to figure out the camera. Okay. Hello everyone. So let's play my intro. It's one of my favorite songs. Okay. Oh, so yeah, I love this song. So this is my intro. It's called Beautiful Flowers for all my flowers out there. You're all beautiful inside and out. Okay, so I said I'm gonna start at 4. Oh, it's exactly 4. I'm on time. I have my integrity. Wait, why is this camera blurry?
Wanting something better than this.
It's blurry.
But who do I turn to? Now
Okay.
moving from the
Oh, there we go. I think I'm back.
This is a defining moment of your life.
Cause you're beautiful like a flower. Okay, that's enough. All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Natasha. I am a licensed social worker in New York. And today I'm going to be talking about trauma. What is trauma? What it looks like? And how it impacts our brain. Um, FYI, I'm very nervous. I'm very nervous. I always get nervous about talking in public, but I'm not even talking in public. I'm in my home, so I don't know why I'm nervous. But I am a trauma survivor, and I think it's very important for other women, men to know what's happening and why they're acting the way they're acting. So this is my giving back to what I've learned, and I'm not a doctor. I do not prescribe medication, but I do talk therapy, individual therapy, and I do help others find healthy ways, holistic ways to cope. Also, I don't think there's any rules. I guess I gotta talk about rules. If you need to email me or you want the presentation that I'm going to be doing, you can email me. I think my email is somewhere on there. It's ndizoni@gmail. Also, you can follow me on Instagram, Natasha underscore Dizoni. Probably should say my last name is Dezonie. So, with further ado, I'm going to get into trauma. So, pretty much the agenda for today. So, I'm pretty much going to be defining trauma, what it is. I'm going to give some stats about trauma, possible risk outcomes, trauma on the brain, identifying alarms, also some tips for becoming trauma informed, and so forth. So first, let's define trauma. If you look on Google what trauma is, Google would say trauma is a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. That's what it says in Google. However, according to the American Psychiatric Association, trauma is the person was exposed to death, threatened death, actual or threatened serious injury, or actual or threatened sexual violence. So what does that mean? So the event itself does not have to be completed for it to be a traumatic event, a traumatic impact on that person. So, for example, say that you have a twin, and you both have, for example, your mom had cancer and she survived. So your mom doesn't have to die for it to be something traumatic for it to be a traumatic event. So that's the main thing. Like, you can, even in domestic violence, you don't have to be the victim of domestic violence for it to be a traumatic experience for you. So, just keep that in mind about the definition of trauma. And I'm going to get into some more of what trauma is. So, trauma is injury or painful experience that has lasting or potential lasting effect on a person's life. It is also a sudden danger that triggers feelings of fear, hopelessness, or horror. Also, a big one, a part of trauma is dangerous events that overwhelms a person's ability to cope. That's a big one for trauma. For individuals that experience trauma, when after it happens, we have a hard time coping, which is a normal. It's a normal experience to any type of event. Like, it's normal for you to be very traumatic or very shaken up after a very disturbing event. Another part that's big for trauma is trauma. It is not the event that dictates what is traumatic to a person, but rather it is the individual's internal experience of the event. So, for example, you and I can be in a car accident and we survived. However, for you, because everybody experienced trauma differently. For you, that event could be, it was a fender bender, I got out safe. But for me, um, that could be a very traumatic thing for me. And I could never, it may cause me not to want to get into a car again. So it's not really the event that it takes it being traumatic, it's how we internalize it. And trauma looks different for everyone, for everyone. Another thing, trauma cover a wide range of spectrum of experiences. Some type of trauma is natural disaster, kidnapping, school violence, community violence, homicide, suicide, physical abuse, complex trauma, sexual abuse and assault, victims or witness to domestic violence, medical injury, illness, procedures, victim of crime, are you witnessing the crime, accident, suicide, neglect, early childhood trauma, grief, historical trauma, which is slavery or the Holocaust. And trauma is actually break down into three, I would say three way of looking at it. The first one is acute trauma. An acute trauma is a single incident. So it can be like something that happened probably like, one time or so, crime of victim, serious accident, or natural disaster. Another type of trauma is chronic trauma. And chronic trauma is repeated, prolonged trauma. And that can be domestic violence or abuse. Complex trauma, and that's one that I was impacted by. Complex. I don't know why I'm going so fast. It's not a race. Calm down, Natasha. So, complex chronic trauma. Complex trauma is chronic, interpersonal, and it can be multiple trauma, and it's normally onset at an early age, and it's often done by a trusted caregiver. So, for example, I'm someone who experienced trauma, sexual trauma when I was age 7, also at age 12. And so I will fall under complex trauma because it was chronic and it was directly happened to me, and it happened at various times in my life by someone I know. And here's some trauma stats that's very interesting when I read it. So 70% of US adults experience a significant trauma at least once in their lifetime. And 20% of those victims develop post-traumatic stress disorder. Also, another good stat, that's a lot of people. Also, another stat on trauma is 14 to 43% of children and adolescents report having experienced trauma. Up to 91% of African American youth in urban settings reported violence exposure. Among refugee children, rates of trauma exposed is up to 100%. And according to the adverse childhood experience, And that's like an assessment that I would say pediatrician do, or probably doctors do in general, the same thing. They do this assessment to assess difficult childhood experience, and based on the assessment that was done, I think this was done in California. 23% of adults reported that they was physically abused. 21% reported sexual abuse. 15% reported emotional neglect. 10% reported physical neglect, and 13% reported they were battered mother, and 27% reported substance abuse in the home. I'm sorry, I got a message. Is everyone hearing me? I don't know how to work this thing. I think everyone is hearing me. I don't know what you do. Thumbs up. Can you do a comment? Is everyone hearing me? Yes? No? I don't know. Yeah, so those were some stats on trauma. So now I'm going to get into trauma on your brain. And what does that even look like? So the brain is one of the most complex organs. This is a fact that I saw that I'm very excited about the brain. I don't know why. I've been obsessed with the brain since I started psychology. I think I did my undergrad was in psychology. And is everyone hearing me? Okay, good. Thank you. So the brain is fascinating to me, and I'm just hitting the surface, and I can't wait to dig deeper into the brain and how it works, and how we're impacted by everything. So I'm very excited. So here's a fun fact about your brain. Where is it? Okay, so the brain, according to the neuroscientist David Eagleman, he said that there are as many connections in a single cubic centimeter of the brain tissue as there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. How cool is that? Like, literally, think about it for a minute. There are as many connections in a single cubic centimeter of brain tissue as there are stars in the Milky Way galaxy. Yeah, the brain's pretty cool. Okay, so let's get back into the business, what I'm here for. So let's talk about trauma on the brain, what it looks like, what it is, and why it looks very different. I want to be very clear for anyone that's listening that may be impacted that was impacted by trauma. You see me now very bubbly, calm, and making very light of this, but it's not something lightly. It's something that really restructure your whole way of living, your whole way of being, and it really changed your perception of life. However, it doesn't have to define you, and by no means are we broken individual. Our brain just work a little bit differently from everybody else, and that's okay. And we have all the tools and the light within us to manage our traumas. And I just wanted everyone to know that experience trauma. So here is I'm just going to talk about the brain and how the brain looks on trauma. So the brain on trauma. So the part of the brain that when our brain. Okay. So when trauma occurs, the brain, the reptilian brain takes over. So the reptilian brain is your most primitive part of your brain. So the most primitive part of your brain is like the brain stem, the part of the brain, the cerebellum, and that's the part of the brain that connects to the the brain stem connects to the spinal cord, and the brain stem controls your functioning to survival, such as your heart rate, your breathing, your digesting food, and sleeping. This is the lowest part of your brain, and this is the most primitive part of your brain that's developed. So as a baby developing, that would be one of the first part of your brain that is developed, It's your survival mode. And the cerebellum is, goes up a little bit further, and that's responsible for movement. So when trauma happens, that is the part of the brain that take over, your reptilian brain. So, and again, the reptilian brain is the part of the brain that have your most primitive, is the most primitive area. So your brain goes into a fight and flight response. All non-essential body and mind function shuts down. So when a traumatic event happens, your body goes into fight or flight, and you're just trying to get out of there. When the threat ceases, the parasympathetic nervous system downshift and resume the highest function. So the I can say that word. The parasympathetic nervous system is a part of your nervous system that soothes you and calms you down and relaxes you. So when you're in a trauma response, that's when the fight kicks in, and that's your automatic system part of the brain. So 20% of survivors, that experience PTSD, after the after effect remains. And that's why it becomes PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder. And victims may have these are some symptoms. Victims may have nightmares, flashbacks, cannot abide by change. That's a big one. We're very stubborn on change, and have difficulty expressing themselves. They will also avoid those things that remind them of their trauma. That's a big one for trauma, for us trauma survivors. So I'm going to get a little bit deeper into the brain and other areas of the brain that's impacted. The 3 most impacted place in the brain that trauma impact is the amygdala. And the amygdala is a part of the brain that control your automatic response associated with fear, arousal, emotional simulation, and that, yeah. And then the hippocampus. So the hippocampus is a part of the brain that's critical to organization of storing new memories, also, as well as connecting to certain sensations and emotion to memories. So have you ever noticed, like, a particular scent might trigger a strong memory? That's where, like, your hippocampus kick in. And that's more, so remember I talked about the brainstem, and all that's your primitive part of your brain, and that's one of the part of the brain that's first developed. So the hippocampus is more into the middle area of your brain, and that's in your limbic system. That's close to your limbic system. That's within your limbic system, and that's the middle part of your brain. So that's the second part of the brain to develop. Now we're going to go to the frontal part of your brain, which is the last to develop. And that actually, the frontal part of your brain, the frontal lobe, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's not fully developed until age 21, but I think now they're saying it's age 25. Who knows? So the other part of the brain that is impacted by trauma is the frontal part of the lobe, an area called the ventral medial prefrontal cortex, also VMPFC. So this part of the brain is a part of the frontal lobe that process like risk and fear, and it also plays a role in inhibition of emotional responses and process decision making. So those are the 3 impacted areas those are the 3 areas in the brain that's impacted the most by trauma. Okay, so I'm going to get into more of what trauma looks like, and still in the brain, and how the stressors occur within the brain. Okay, so I said that already. So when a traumatic event happens, the nervous system is stuck in high gear. stress hormones remain elevated. This damage, this is a hormone cell. This damage the glucocorticoid cells, and that cells are more like related to like stress hormones, and it's the adrenal gland secrete these glucocorticoids hormones that produce an array of effects in response to trauma. So, just a side note, these glucocorticoid cells include mobilizing energy into the bloodstream from storage sites in the body. It increased cardiovascular tone and delaying long-term processes in the body that are not essential during a crisis, such as feeding, digestion, growth, and reproduction. So when trauma happens, these cells, these hormones are in crisis mode, and it's trying to pump all the blood to your bloodstreams, and it's shutting down everything that we don't need. We don't need it. We don't need to reproduce. We don't need to digest anything. We're in fully crisis mode. When trauma happens, that's what happened to those cells. And the hippocampus is this the hippocampus it's okay. The hippocampus making it the so when trauma happens, this is what happened to the hippocampus. It's difficult, it makes it difficult to form synaptic connections, thus to sustain, so it's hard for you to recall memories. As a result, people who may experience post-traumatic stress syndrome, they may lose their hippocampus, because this causes an inability for the victim to tell the difference between past and present experiences. Due to this phenomenon, the environment that resemble where the trauma took place can cause panic, fear, and aggression. So what does all of this mean? So all this means that when a person experiences trauma, they have a hard time making new experiences, and okay, they have a hard time making new experiences, but also the part of the brain, if something similar happens again, they have a hard time making new memories. But when something new happened again that resemble the trauma that happened before, because the trauma that happened before, they automatically go into this panic mode again, as if the trauma is happening all over again. So I can relate to that. I mean, many times that even with my friends, they say something, the simplest things, and I go into full protective trauma mode, where I feel like something that they say, could be one of the simplest words that they say, trigger me, and I can't tell what's happening. It's like my brain got hijacked by something that I can't describe, that it put me in a reactive mode. So I hope that makes sense. Anyways, so the victim cannot tell the difference between past memory and the present situation, since it is unknown to them whether the threat has passed. The victim remain hyper vigilant, and they're stuck in reactive mode. Pretty much what I said. Yeah, we're stuck in very reactive mode, because we cannot tell the thing that's happening right in front of us. Even though it's happening in front of us, in our brain, it's being processed in a very different way. Okay, so another area of the brain that's impacted, let me see. I think I said all that stuff already. Yeah, so pretty much in these symptoms that, as I mentioned before, it's confusing for a person, that a victim who find themselves suddenly without control of their minds, bodies, and they can't understand why they're getting so enraged, nearly to tears, over the silliest things. That's so key. That's so me. Like when experience that remind me somehow of my traumatic experience, I get very enraged, and my friend can tell you, and I get, it's like something take over my brain, and I can't tell why am I so upset about the stupidest thing. I remember one time I went to a wedding with my friend, and I think she said something around how we was dancing, and then Spanish music came on, and she was like, "Oh, you should know what a dance is because you had a Spanish ex-boyfriend." And I was like, and I went in full trauma mode. What are you talking about? Me and him didn't even dance. Like he's not a dancer. You should know that. And we went to this big whole blow up argument over this stupidest thing because I felt like she was trying to attack me or she was judging me. And it wasn't that serious. I apologize, Fifi. I love you. But it's serious, yo. Trauma is no joke. But yeah, so another some other symptoms that occurs to people experiencing trauma is that sufferers may experience heart palpitation, memory loss, shaking, insomnia, nightmares, difficulty concentrating. Also, as I mentioned, hypervigilance causes elevated levels of stress hormones, making it difficult for the body to regulate itself. Pretty serious stuff. Yeah. Yeah. And I just want to give you some more information about how impactful this is for trauma, especially especially in children, because the brain is the brain is it says the brain by age 3, the brain is almost 80% developed, and by age 5 it's almost 90%. So if trauma has happened before these ages or around these ages, it can cause very, I would say, very it can be very impactful. A traumatic event experience that involves, okay, oh yeah, so a traumatic experience, it involves most of all your senses, and it involve sight, taste, hearing, smell, also physical pain, as well as emotion, speech, thought, and is stored in multiple regions throughout the brain. So I just talked about the main 3. And last, just want to read this from a researcher called Goldstein, and he said the human brain is designed to sense, process, store, and perceive and act on information from the external and internal environment. All these complex systems and activities work together for an overreaching purpose, which is survival. Yeah, our brain's pretty powerful, guys and girls and ladies. Yeah. So let's get into the learning brain. And so pretty much the learning brain is, when you're in learning brain mode, you feel safe, secure, and you see the whole picture. You focus on the mission, vision, and goals. You're calm, confident, you're engaged, curious, and you accept mistakes as a part of learning. So that's a learning brain. When you're in survival mode, you're like, help me, help. And that part of the brain, when you're in survival brain, you feel threatened and stressed. You're black and white thinking. You focus on specific details and obstacles. You're anxious, you're fearful, you're insecure, you're hopeless, you're numb, and you don't see, and you don't want to make mistake. This is a big part. This is a big part for individual experience trauma. You don't want to make mistake, because people that experience trauma, we associate mistake as a part of our sense of self, that like something is wrong with us, and that mistake is, if I make a mistake, people think I'm stupid, or something's wrong with me. So people that experience trauma, we don't like to make any mistakes. We avoid mistakes by giving up. I can't tell you how many times I give up on things because I'm like, this is too hard. So yeah, we avoid mistakes. We don't like to make mistakes. And we see others, even in the littlest things, we see others as critical, dangerous, or judgmental. Like, why are you judging me? Why are you always judging me? Why are you also critical of me? It's serious stuff. We don't like to be criticized. We don't like feedbacks. But I'm learning. Namaste. Okay. So here's some facts about trauma again. Trauma impact on the brain development. So exposure to chronic, prolonged traumatic experiences has the potential to alter children's brains, which may cause longer-term effects in areas such as attachment, trouble with relationships, boundaries, empathy, and social isolation. Also, physical health. It's impair sensomotor development, coordination problems, increased medical problems, and somatic symptoms. I remember one of my client one time said that she was feeling like a pain in her, in her back. She went to the doctor, and the doctor couldn't find any like medical problems. And she came to me and she told me how she had this traumatic stress experience at her job. So that stress, traumatic events can cause you somatic symptoms, where I guess psychosomatic symptoms, where the brain is impacting the body, where it's being thank you, where the brain is impacting the body, and physical symptoms actually coming out. Like, I mean, even sometimes I get nervous. I know when I was doing like my first presentation this year, like I got so nervous that my back started hurting me, that my stomach started hurting me. It's very serious. Sometimes you even have headaches. And lately I've been noticing when I get nervous about things, I started having stomach aches. And I'm telling you, the brain is so powerful, guys, and it has a way of manifesting in so many different ways. So yeah, so that was somatic symptoms. So that's what somatic symptoms are. Also emotional regulation. This is pretty much how trauma impact the brain development. So emotional regulation. People that experience trauma may have a hard time regulating their emotion. I can tell you how many times in my life. Oh, difficulty identifying or labeling feelings and communicating their needs. Yes, we have a very hard time communicating our needs, and we have a very hard time regulating our emotions. Another one, which is something that I just started learning, disassociation, altered states of consciousness, amnesia, or impaired memory. So pretty much some people that experience trauma, again, trauma looks different. People experience traumatic experiences may, some people it may not impact them. Some people it may impact their whole life. So for me, I know this association was a big thing that I did to deal with my trauma, which was, I try to suppress it, try to forget about it. It's something that I couldn't handle because it was so painful that I couldn't handle it. And I didn't want to. Like, think about it. How can a 3-year-old or 4-year-old think about, like, what that means, what happened? How can you verbalize that? So our brain is so powerful, guys, that it has a way of I can say that word, of putting like memories into certain part of your brain until you need it. Well, I don't think that's a good way. Disassociation. Look it up. But I think that was that was something that impacted me very, like, disassociation. I disconnected from my trauma. And disconnecting from your trauma, for a while, that may be healthy, but long term, it's not something that can be healthy to live. I feel like to live my best life. So I had to face trauma head on to be the butterfly that I am today. Another impact on trauma and the brain development is, it says here, cognitive ability. So, problem with focusing. Oh, I can't focus for nothing. You know how long it take me to like put your phone down, Natasha, get off Instagram, Natasha, do some research, Natasha. You gotta go to work now, Natasha. I can't concentrate for nothing. It's so hard to concentrate. I'm taking some herbs though, so that should help. But also, so a little bit more. So it impacts our cognitive abilities to focus, learning, also process new information, language development, planning. Oh, I think anybody know me know I have a very hard time planning for anything. I got a hard time organizing. Oh my goodness, but I gotta organize it now. Shout out to my organizer, Jessica. What else? It says planning and orientation to time and space. Yeah, I'm always late. Well, I'm getting better with that. But yeah, I don't really I don't estimate time. Yeah, but I'm learning. Another part that trauma impact when the brain is being developed is self-concept. Lack of consistent sense of self, body image issue, low self-esteem, shame, and guilt. This is a big one for people who experience stress, including myself. I have a very hard time. For a very long time, I had a problem with understanding a sense of who I am, I had self-esteem issues, body image issues. I was overweight. I was like 200, well, almost 200 pounds. And my weight been up and down my entire life since I was a little girl. So, this is something, and yes, it brings a lot of shame and guilt. When somebody experiences trauma, for some reason, we internalize it. That it means that instead of saying there's something bad that happened, we think there's something bad that we think. Well, I'm talking about sexual trauma because there's different type of trauma. So I'm talking sexual trauma in specifically. So we internalize the trauma as if we're the one that caused it, something bad that we caused, and it has like a lot of shame and guilt around it. I know for a very long time I didn't tell anyone that I was a trauma survivor. I was ashamed of it. So that's one thing that how it impact the brain development. Another one is behavioral control. This is for my best friend Felicia. I know them kids that you're working with. Yeah. When you experience trauma, behavioral control is very difficult. It says difficulty controlling impulsive aggression, disrupted sleep, eating patterns, and trauma reenactment. So people that experience trauma, they themselves sometimes also become the perpetrator. So some people that, for example, that was sexually assaulted, they also end up assaulting people, assaulting other individuals. If that makes sense. Yeah. So just a little thing here. So again, when people experience stress from whether external, our brain going to 3 modes. Who can name them? I already mentioned 2. All right. I don't think this thing is interactive, but our brain goes to 3 modes: fight, flight, and freeze. Fight, flight, and freeze. Okay. So that's the survival brain. So as a person in survival brain, what does fight look like? Wait, somebody said something. Send that message again. I wasn't looking up. Okay. So when when stress or some external thing happen, again, the brain go into three modes: fight, flight, and freeze. So what does fight look like? So fight look like argumentative. Yeah, that's me. You're irritable. You can be disrespectful, defiant, upper oppositional. So that's fight. So for flight looks like numbing, avoidance, disassociation, daydreaming, inattention. Yeah, I can definitely freeze. So freeze mode look like numbing, detachment, unable to move or speak, tensing up, and stuck in place. So how do we, I know it's a struggle to get from, survival brain to learning brain. And it's a daily struggle where, because we're coming from the survival mode as human beings. So it's a struggle to get to, to shift your brain to the learning brain. So I'm just going to get into the iceberg effect. And the iceberg effect is pretty much, like I'm pretty sure everybody said Titanic. Yeah. So you the iceberg is what sunk Titanic, right? So pretty much the iceberg effect is saying that most behavior, so this is the iceberg. So most behavior normally happen, most behaviors have an underlying reason behind them. And we're only seeing 10% of what is really going on with the person. That's scary. So pretty much when you see somebody in anger, like or anger outbursts, you're only seeing 10% of that behavior, but the underlining reason, the other 90% looks like worry, annoyed, grief, insecurity, trauma, anxious, feeling alone, shame, helpless, disappointed. That's a big one. I get very disappointed very easily. Not okay. I do. Regret, guilt, grief, sad, frustrated, worried, annoyed, and hurt. So, most of the emotions are hidden. So how can we support people, individual that experience trauma? Hurt people, and your worst days doesn't have to define you. um a big thing for trauma, for individual experience trauma, is caring relationships, and people, having people around us that makes us feel safe. I know for a very long time, as a person experienced trauma, I didn't think anybody cared about me, anybody loved me, and it took me a very hard time to trust anyone. And it's not because of them. When something traumatic happens to you, it's very hard for you to trust not only yourself but trust the outside world. And it takes, and it takes a lot of work to really, trust. So also, another way you can support an individual that experience trauma is increase awareness of what a survival versus learning brain looks like in yourself as an individual, but also in others. Um, Slow down reactions by regulating the body. Slow down survival reactions by regulating the body. So and by incorporating some stress reduction technique. My best friend will love this meditation. So meditate, that's a good way to reduce stress. And it doesn't have to be 30 minutes. It can just be like a 5-minute check-in with your body. Check it like a body scan. What's happening right now in my head? What do I feel right now in my shoulders? Is my shoulders tense? What am I feeling in my hands? What do I feel in my chest? Just do your whole body scan, just check in with yourself. Other things that we can do to support individual experience trauma is, it says here, establish a routine that makes them feel comfortable. So people that experience trauma, we like routines. I would say we don't like change, because change, for some reason, I don't know, we don't like change. So establishing up a routine, I know for me, some things that help me to feel secure or comfortable with myself is having a routine. Like, I have a routine every day. Like, I get up, if I'm not making my smoothies or going to the gym or writing in my journal or reading something, it has to be, so we like routines. Another thing it says here is establishing comfortable boundary by asking what is comfortable. Yeah, this is a big one. Like, for example, if you're in somebody's house, ask their permission. Is it okay can I touch your shoulder? Can I turn off for example, a big thing for me as a trauma survivor, I don't like to be touched. It put me in very high alert, like what, like I can't describe it. Like, I remember last week I was in my sister group and we're learning this new dance and I wasn't getting the dance. I have 2 left feet. However, my sister was trying to tell me, she touched me and trying to tell me, like, put your hand this way. And the level of blood, like, fumes internally that started to fume internally by this girl touching me, trying to tell me how to put my hands, was excruciating. And it took everything in me to say, don't, touch me. But I had to do some self-talk. Natasha, it's okay. It's okay. She's just trying to help you. She's just trying to help you. She's just trying to help you. Well, if that was me 2 years ago, yeah, it'd probably be another story. But, establish comfortable boundary. Ask people, it is okay if I touch you? Is it okay if I hug you? Yeah. Yeah. So I want to get into another worksheet. So another worksheet that I found about what are your trauma alarms. So I found this worksheet that just talk about some some alarm triggers. So what are some of your triggers or push buttons? What set you off? Here are some things. It says being alone, feeling lonely, loud music, being touched. Yeah, being touched can tick me off. You jokes. Yeah, it took a while for me to be warm up to jokes. Being asked questions. You better not ask no questions. Not having control or input. Contact with family. That used to be one for me. Being asked to keep a secret. Oh, I can keep a secret. Wink, wink. Going to court. No comment. Specific time of the day. Lack of privacy. Darkness. I was raised in the dark. Batman. Oh no, that was Batman. What that guy name again? You know what I mean. Arguments, yeah, not a trigger. Not enough room. Being stared at, yes, that's a trigger, but not in a like attack way, but in a way that yeah. Being around men, yes, it's a trigger for me. Being ignored, not a trigger for me. Threatening to look, yes. People yelling, yes. Seeing police officers, trigger. Feeling pressured, not being listened to, snap, snap. Being let down by someone you trust, snap, snap. Being in a large group of people, sometimes. Being told to be quiet, you better not tell me to be quiet. Being around women, I guess sometimes. It depends on the personality. Being teased or picked on, that was a big one for me. A place where trauma happened. Having a limit set on your behavior. Talking to a police officer. Anniversary of the trauma. The time and the year. Other triggers that mean. So this is a trauma sheet to like a worksheet for you to check off, like, what are your alarm triggers, and I can send it to anyone that needs it. And then we're going to get into how other people know that you were upset or having a hard time. So how can you know that I was upset? How can you know I was having a hard time when you touch me? That girl that was in the classroom. At my sister group. Sweating. So these are some examples. Not every one of them is related to me, but I'm just going to tell you which one relate to me. So sweating, heart racing, check, that was happening to me. Pacing, loud voice. Yeah, when my voice get loud, I'm kind of loud already, but if my voice gets extra loud, that means, yeah, I was triggered. I'm upset. Hiding, yeah. Can't sleep, yep. Argue with peers, yep. A messy room, yep. Talk about dying. No, I'm not related to that. But others, may have a hard time, and that may be one of their symptoms. Red face. I'm Black. I don't think I can have a red face. Clenched teeth, yes. Bouncy legs, can't sit still. Sometimes. Sing inappropriate songs, no. Silly. Sleeping during day. Talk about sex and relationship. Stop taking medication. Breathing hard. Clenched fists. Rocking. Crying, yes, I can relate to that. Eat less or more. I eat more. I eat more. Yeah, I eat more when I'm sad or having a hard time. I eat more. Swearing. Stay away from people. Yep. Give stuff away. No. Break or throw stuff. No. Act rude or disrespectful. Yep. Poor hygiene. Yeah, I go say back in the days, I used to not bathe for when I'm home alone. Stop following rules. Yep. I don't like rules. Can pay attention. Yep. Hide things. Yeah. Look spaced out. Yeah. So those are some alarms you can tell to know when people are upset or having a hard time. And what helps you to stay in control. So now I'm going to get into what helps you to stay in control when you get angry or upset. So I'm just going to name them all and say which one relate to me. What are your alarm triggers? And no, wait, it went back up. Let me go down. Okay. So what helps you stay in control when you get angry or upset? Drawing, painting. No, that is, it may relate to some others. Humor and jokes. I love a joke. If you can make me laugh, yes. Molding clay. No, but that's a good one. Getting exercise and sports. Yes, that's me. Tightening, relaxing body. Not really. Smoking cigarette. No, scratch that. No. That's not a healthy one. Smoking weed. No. Drinking alcohol. No. Chewing gum, no. Deep breaths, yes. Crying, laying down, taking a nap, yeah. Listen to music. Writing in your journal, reading, writing poetry or rhymes, punching pillow, no. Fighting. I can't. I'm trying to see of that. Maybe fighting is like you going to like the gym. Scratch that. That doesn't. No. Taking a walk. Yeah. Taking a shower. Yes. Water heals. I tell you. I take some baths. I be taking herbal baths for the past 3-4 weeks. For the past 2 months now, actually. Yeah. And it's been very soothing. I put lavender, herb, Frankenstein, myrrh, and I put Epsom salts, and I sit in the bath for 20 minutes. Whew. Wash away all your sorrows. You feel like a brand new person when you do it. Do it for 20 minutes before bed. Cold washcloth on your face, chewing ice. I know for people who experience cutting, if you put the ice cube in your palms and squeeze it, it's known to help you soothe you to prevent you from cutting. So yeah, cold water plays a role into soothing also. Counting, count backwards, I think, from 10 to 1. Because when you're doing that, you're actually activating the frontal lobe, which is the boss parts of your brain, like the executive part of your brain that make decisions. So counting from 10 to 1, activate that part of your brain. Playing video games, calling and talking to someone, yes. I talk to my friend Fifi for like 2 hours when I'm stressed out sometimes. And my other friend Bavona. So have a support, like have like when I get stressed out, who should I call? Who will I contact? Because sometimes you just need to talk it out and you just need somebody to listen. Being with other people, yeah, sometimes it's good to be with other people. Playing cards, time out in your bedroom, dancing. Oh yes, dancing is a big thing. I got 2 left feet, but for some reason, I feel like I was a dancer in my past life. So when I get up every morning, I'm always playing music and dancing with my 2 left feet. Meditating. Yes, I'm a baby meditator, but it works wonders to meditate and visualize your day going beautiful. Use a stress ball. Yeah. On my job, this guy had some like silver stress ball. He always like, I don't know. I guess it helps some people. Watching TV or a movie. Yeah, sometimes just take some time out. Watch some TV, a movie, something to distract you from from the stresses of life. I can relate to that. So that was my presentation around trauma and some tips to help anyone experience trauma to manage it in a very healthy way. I want to thank everyone that watching me and giving me thumbs up and supporting me on this journey. This is my first YouTube episode of many to come, and pretty much any ideas or questions or comments you have for me, leave it in the comment section. I don't know the work YouTube, but leave it somewhere. I should be able to see it. And also send me a message that you need. Also, I do individual therapy. Right now I do take a break from it, but if anyone that experiencing any type of I would say stress due to any traumatic experiences, you do have help is out there. Contact me, or I know New York City has uh a crisis hotline called NYC Well. Literally, it's called NYC Well. Look it up. It's a 24-hour hotline. They are licensed therapists that you can talk to 24 hours a day, and they talk with you. You can also text them. You can also chat with them online, and they also connect you with resources in your community. So that's my spill. And please subscribe to my channel. I think I have like 3 subscribers. Thank you. I love you. Never underestimate the power of small beginnings. And I'm very happy that I was able to complete this thing. And I think I'm talking way too much. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you, John. And thank you, everyone. I don't know to cut this thing off. But thank you. Have an amazing day. Goodbye. How do you stop this thing? Stop live chat, none. Share. I don't know what to stop this thing. Help. No. I thank you. Oh, that's it. Take care, everyone. Yeah, I want to stop screaming. But will that save my video though? Why? Goodbye, Mark. I don't know how to stop this. Okay. Goodbye. I want to share. Share this the video. Okay.